Hey guys, what's up? Seth here. Happy Pride Month. I think one of the greatest things that come out of Pride Month are the coming out stories, because I think it's important to realize what other people have gone through, because then we can realize that we're not alone. And hopefully we can also learn from each other to help this happen to other kids. So before I get into this, I'm gonna say it gets really heavy. Yeah. Also, my family is great now. My family loves me, close to them. So please know that going in. So I first started noticing I was different when I was really young. Like 6, 7, 9, 8, 9. I liked boys. I didn't know what it was called because gay was something that was not talked about in my household. I didn't even know what gay was. I actually didn't. I'm from a town of 600 people. Like, I had no idea what gay was. I thought I liked these boys, but I'm still supposed to marry a girl. That's what I'm supposed to do. So, you know, we'd fool around. We'd play doctor, or as we called it, gross outs, because we'd dare each other to do something. So my dad caught me playing this when I was around 12, I'd say. And he sat me down and he's like, Seth, like, you know you can't do this. This is wrong. And I said, why? And he goes, because a guy is supposed to like a woman and a woman is supposed to like a man. Now, you've played around with kids, like, it's okay, all kids do this, but you can't do this anymore, otherwise it's a sin. I said, okay. So I stopped. My feelings didn't. I just stopped doing anything about it and stopped playing around. My dad sat me down later that year, my brother and I, at our kitchen table, and looked us in the eye and said, Seth and Kyle, I want you to know I love you, but if I ever think for a moment that you or your brother are bi or gay, I will kick you out of this house this instant for fear if I keep you. I will kill you in your sleep and then kill myself for killing you. That's not exaggerated. This is what my father told me at 12 and a half, 13 years old. I knew there was something different with me, and I knew that's what it was. And I realized I either had to push everything in me down or push everything of my family away. I wasn't doing anything with anybody at that time, but I started talking to guys online and stuff like that. But it was always as to try and figure out what this was. Later, I got my first online boyfriend. He said his name was Sebastian. It was really Kieran. I was saying I was 16, I was really 14. And he was saying he was 20 and he was really 22. It's fine, we actually never met. I don't know him anymore. But I will say thank you to him because he gave me the courage to come out to my mom. So at 14, I sit down next to my mom after he said in order for us to take our relationship to the next point, I have to come out to her. So I sit down next to her on the sofa and she's watching TV and I ask her, hey mom, can I tell you something? She goes, yeah, what is it? I'm like, well, it's kind of important. Can you turn the TV off? She goes, sure. She mutes the TV. She doesn't turn it off. I think she knows it's coming. Won't look at me. I said, well, mom, I think I'm bi. She goes, okay. Is that it? I'm like, yeah. She reaches over, pats my leg, doesn't look at me, and says, well, I want you to know, I think this is just a phase, but I'll love you no matter what. I said, okay. She goes, are you done? And I said, yep. She goes, okay, TV back on. So that was the easy one. Later that year, I started a new school. I was going into 10th grade. and I went to Olean High School for this. I met my brother's best friend sometime in the fall, because we were in same school, different classes. His name was also Seth, and this was going to be the person I lost my virginity to. The second night he stayed over, we ended up going downstairs and fooling around and realizing that we were both gay. So in the back of my mind is everything that my father had told me. We ended up fooling around together for a long time, and I actually lost my virginity to him. I bought him first. I tried to kiss him. He turned his head away twice. And he said, I thought we were keeping this as friends. So when it was my turn, he got on all fours. I shoved that in the thing so hard, and he screamed. We're still friends. Wish him all the best. But yeah, he was my first. Later that year, I had started coming out to my friends at this point, but my brother found one of my emails. And he apparently took the emails and ran out and told my two friends, Seth, who obviously knew, and our other friend, Kristinette. He goes, look what I found, look what I found. My brother's gay. And I'm like, yeah, Kyle, we know. He's like, what? This can't happen. Like, I'm gonna tell my dad, he's gonna get thrown out of the house. He shouldn't be allowed in here. And thankfully I had good friends. They stopped him and said, no, you're not. If you go to your father with this, we are going to tell your father that these are your emails, and you'll get thrown out of the house and disowned. You can't do that. That's not right. Thankfully, my brother listened. He did not tell my father, and thankfully I wasn't ready. Down the road a few months, we're getting into, towards spring, I met my first real boyfriend. His name is Eric. I was 16, and Eric was 23. 22, maybe. The beginning was great. He was really sweet. And he stood there and he helped me realize that I needed to come out to my father. I needed to face this. He made me realize that if my father wasn't going to love me for who I am, then he's not my real father. He might be the man that gave birth to me, but by no means is he my father. So I wrote my dad a letter because I was terrified to tell him in person. I wrote my dad a letter explaining all this, that I loved him, but I couldn't lie to him anymore. I just couldn't. And I gave it to him at 16. And I moved in with my mom. I didn't hear from my dad. 6 months down the road now, I'm with Eric, and it's a really abusive relationship. He would hit me. I remember one time we were leaving lunch at Applebee's, and I'd asked him not to drink a lot, and he got hammered. And so I was driving, and he actually choked me and picked me out of the seat to where I couldn't breathe. I had to swerve the car over into a ditch so he would let go. It's really hard to really leave a relationship like that because it's the only love I had. But he's literally also killing me. I didn't have anybody to talk to. My mom was in her own world. My brother wasn't there, and I certainly couldn't talk to my father. After months of this, my dad finally actually picked up the phone because the state troopers had been called that they were worried my life was in danger. So my dad finally called and said, "What's going on?" This is 6 months after I've come out to him. I lied, I denied it all. Obviously, I couldn't tell my dad. But my dad decided he needed to step into my life to try and help. thankfully, finally. I started talking to my dad. I went back to work for him. And then eventually I was able to break up the relationship with Eric. Still 16. I'm being horribly harassed in school. One class in particular, Mr. Wolf's, thank you. By the kid sitting behind me I'd sit down and he goes, "Careful, Seth, don't get excited." And I would turn around and tell him to shut up. And I would be the one that would be yelled at by the teacher. He'd call me a faggot, all the other words. And when I told him to be quiet, I was yelled at, not him. Every time. So I finally started spending time back at my father's so I could try and escape this and try and find subtlety in my life and figure this out. My father convinced me what I needed to do was come out and tell the guidance counselor, Mr. Howard, what was going on. I did. A week later, he had a surprise meeting with him and Mr. Wolf in his office and sat me down. And Mr. Wolf looked at me and goes, "You were lying." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are. You're a terrible student. You're a terrible kid. That kid that you're saying did it, he's a great student." I shut down. Mr. Howard then turns to me and looks at me and goes, "You know what, Seth? It's high school. Everybody gets picked on. Deal with it." That was the end of that conversation. I couldn't stay in that class anymore for my own mental health. I was contemplating hurting myself, and I knew that's not what I wanted to do and that's not what I should do, but I couldn't go to that class again. I couldn't be called these terrible names and not have any defense. Especially when the people that are just supposed to be defending me are telling me, deal with it. We asked if I could skip that class and then go back to community college the next year and send in my credits and get my diploma late, which is something New York State offers. They told me no. Mr. Howard said I was not able to do this, that our school no longer offered it. So my only other option was to drop out of school that year and attend the school, a different school the following year. And that's what I did. So I was supposed to graduate 2004, the same year as my brother, and I didn't. I graduated 2005 from high school the next year. Come to find out, 3 girls in my class did that. 3 girls in my class were short 2 credits. I would have been short 1. And they were able to go to community college the next year and get their diploma and graduate on time, and I wasn't. So I'm working for my dad full-time to save up money because I knew I needed to move the hell out of here as soon as I could. I'm trying to work at things with my father, but it's really hard at this point. He asked me to go to therapy. And I said, yes, I would love to. I think that'd be great. Like, I could use someone to talk to. And his next words were, good, because I really think they could fix you. I'm like, excuse me? I don't need fixed. And he goes, well, yes, you do. I got up out of that chair and I looked at him and I said, fuck you. And I walked out of his office and I left. He asked me again 2 months after that, to which I had a similar response, except this time when I stood up, I said, I swear to God, if you ever ask me to go to therapy to fix who I am, I will walk out of your life this instant because there is nothing about me being gay that needs to be fixed. And it's true. Because you're gay, there's nothing that needs to be fixed about you being gay. It took a long time with my father pushing boundaries and getting him to realize that I'm not a different person and I'm not going to burn in hell just because I choose to love men. Or just because I love men, not because I choose. I could choose to love women and I would still be gay. It took a lot of time. I went to school the next year at Archbishop Walsh. I had the most amazing principal. Her name is Mrs. Baker, and you helped change my life. Overall, I had a really great year. There was one kid that would consistently give me trouble, but Mrs. Baker had my back every step of the way. And at a private school, they can actually tell you a guy cannot sign a guy in and a girl cannot sign a girl in because it's against the rules. And you can't do anything about it because it's a private school, so they're allowed to tell you that. And I remember trying to sign my boyfriend in for prom, and they told me no. I got outraged. I said I wanted to have a meeting with Mrs. Baker. They said, okay, they're sorry, but it's just against policy. I walk into the office with Mrs. Baker. She sits me down. I'm ready to go. And she goes, no, before you say anything, I want you to know I hear what you're saying, but because of the private school, we're allowed to do this. But I want you to know that you will be allowed to bring whomever you want to prom, and I will make sure of it. And if there's any problems, you can tell them to come to me, and I will get our lawyer, and I will make sure that you are able to. I couldn't breathe. For the first time in my life, I had an adult saying I could be gay and it's okay. Mind you, it's the principal of the Catholic high school. For the first time, I had a teacher that had my back. I had an adult that was willing to fight for me. And it was the most amazing feeling. We ended up not having a prom, funny enough, because there was only 8 kids graduating from my school, but she was willing to fight for me. I graduated that year in 2005, and 6 months later, I moved to New York City because I realized I needed to figure out what it was like to be a gay man in the middle of a city where I could be a gay man and be accepted as a gay man. So this is my coming out story. This is kind of everything up until I was 18. It's not always easy. We're not always loved, especially not in the beginning, and it's terrifying. But I would never and will never change the fact that I'm gay. And it is one of my favorite parts about me. I've learned how to struggle with family. I've learned how to struggle with being loved. Being right, being wrong, and everything else in between for who I am. But I've also learned to love myself for who I am, to be proud of who I am, and to cherish every single friend and relationship I have for what it is. Because my friends, they are my greatest family. So, yes, my dad is fine with it now. My brother's great, as is my mom. It took a while, but it does get better. And even if it doesn't with them, you have to remember, you have to love yourself above everything else, because that's when it gets better. I know this is a really long video, longer than I thought it was going to be. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing. And if you have any other questions, if there's anything you need from me, whether you've come out already or you haven't come out yet, please feel free to message me and get a hold of me. I will be there for everything I can. There's also hotlines. I will post them in the comments below of places you can go for help and support in coming out. I urge you, if you are not out of the closet this yet, please come out. It is terrifying, but it is the greatest thing I've ever done. And it will be for you too. Happy Pride Month with love and respect for all of you. Have a great day.